Good evening. Welcome to the International Great Black Read Aloud Day 2024. And we are excited to be with you here tonight. We've got an extra day of reading this month. Of course, we have other days that make up, but it is leap year 2024. And so we have 29 days of different books from which we're going to read. And so tonight is open genre night, and we've got a bit of a read for you and we hope you enjoy it. My name is LD Robinson, and I am your reading host for tonight. We would like to invite you to subscribe to our website, which is greatblackreadaloudday.org. And here at TIGBRAD, which is what we call the International Great Black Read Aloud Day, it is an educational venture for us. We are providing awareness of all the different types of literature written by Black people all around the world. In fact, our tag is giving voice to words written by Black people all around the world. And so that's across the African diaspora, and we are thoroughly enjoying what we are doing. We are having lots of fun. We have read, this is our fourth year, and we have picked up numerous books, some which we probably never would have read just out of personal genre interest. And so that's been the really exciting part about this to me is that I have read outside of kind of my own natural reading tendencies. And so that's been very enjoyable. Well, tonight is again open genre, and we are going to get into our read. So, wherever you are in the world, we hope that you are having a great day. If you've had a full day, maybe this will be a little something extra on your day. Okay. And let's put up our cover. Our title is Dear Vicky. So let's put up our cover first here. And let's go. Seems like we're having internet issues again tonight. And again, this would be my fault. Okay, so let's go to our title. And here is our title. Let me take up this. And here's our cover. It is Dear Vicky by author Octavia Grant. Okay. And so we're going to start reading part of a chapter. Then we're going to read a little bit. And let's get right into our read. Okay. Day 29, open genre. Our title is Dear Vicky. And of course, we're going to keep our ticker running here on the bottom to invite you to subscribe to our mailing list and stay abreast of everything that we're doing here at the International Great Black Read Aloud Day. Okay, you look so familiar. Is your name Marissa? I think we're in the same anatomy and physiology class at Blakely Jones Community College. Did you understand Professor Piedmont's lecture the other day? She has the hardest time staying on track during her lectures. Sasha said as she slid the items over the barcode reader, then down to me to put in the grocery bags. I see Mrs. Piedmont hasn't changed, she chuckled. No, I'm not in your anatomy and physiology class. I graduated from Blakely Jones 5 years ago. But if you can decipher her ad libs and colloquialisms, you'll be okay. I'm a better nurse because of her witticism. My name is Victoria, but everyone calls me Vicky, Vicky said sweetly. I could tell by the way that she spoke and the words that my Vicky used that she was smart, intelligent, and extremely funny. I had never even heard the word colloquialism before. I'd have to look that up when I went on break to see what it meant. I was going to have to give Sasha a pat on the back because she wasn't even taking anatomy and physiology. She dropped that class in the beginning of the semester when she changed her major from nursing to childhood education. Thanks for the advice, Vicky. Your total today is $21.47. Will it be cash or card? Sasha asked politely. I was so entranced by her beauty that I didn't even realize that both Sasha and Vicky were standing there staring at me. Andrew, do you think you could bag my groceries? I have to go, she said, showing off her brilliant smile that I had grown to love. Huh? Oh, yes. Okay, I said, stumbling over my words like an idiot. I was so nervous that I was having a hard time grabbing the items to place in the plastic bags. Are you in one of my classes? How did you know my name? I asked. I could see Sasha shaking her head from the corner of her eyes, but I ignored her. Vicky shook her head and giggled. How did I know your name? Let's just say I always do my research when it comes to a super cute guy. Y'all have a good day. See you later, Andrew, Vicky said as she patted my chest. All I could do was smile as she winked at me. Her patting on my chest let me know that she was okay with public displays of affection. It also let me know that she and I shared mutual feelings. How do you know my name? Sasha mimicked. What kind of question was that? You wear a name tag, Andrew. Sasha said as she slid next to the as she slid the next customer's groceries down to me. I was in too much of a good mood to even process what Sasha just said. All I could think about was Vicky saying, "See you later, Andrew." That meant she and I would be seeing each other again. The chemistry between us was undeniable. This was true love. Sasha was on my Sha- Sasha was my only true friend. Since she and Vicky were already acquainted, the only thing left to do was introduce Vicky to my family. Chapter 2. Ma, I'm home. I called out when I opened the front door of my apartment. As soon as I walked in the house, my stomach began to growl. The smell of fried pork chops, corn on the cob, and scalloped potatoes entered my nose, and the hunger that I had forgotten came back full force. I was so upset with myself earlier that I completely skipped my lunch break. All I could think about all day was what I could have done differently today when speaking with Vicky. She deserves so much more than a quick chat in the checkout line of my job. Hello, dear. You're a little late. I was expecting you home by 10:30 at the latest. It's 11:05. My mom said as she came from out of my kitchen with a dish rag draped over her left shoulder. With my back to her, I rolled my eyes. I had no idea why she was complaining. She texted me when I first got to work and said she would be at my house when I got off. It's not like I invited her. My mother was too overbearing, so I never invited her over. Ever since my father left her, she would just pop up whenever she felt like it. Since she could cook so well, I didn't complain. Instead of being rude and talking back, I simply said, I know, I planned on calling you when I got off to let you know I'd be late, but my phone was dead. Sasha's car needed a new battery, so I dropped her off. I said while holding up my phone to show her the black screen. I had spent so much time online on social media searching Vicky that my phone died before my shift was over. I wish you would have called me from your work phone. You know I hate driving so late at night. If I knew you were coming home so late, I would have told Polly I was going to be late. I bet he's so worried, she said, wringing her hands in a worried manner. I looked at my mother and shook my head. A person that didn't know her would think Polly was the man in her life, but since I was her son, I knew better. Polly was her talking parrot. The bird situation was sad. She had trained the bird to cuss at her and call her dirty names the way my father used to. My dad hadn't always treated her that way, but by the end of their marriage, my father had truly begun to hate my mom. She had worn him down over the years. Secretly, I believe that my mom cherished or obsessed over the bird because it was the last thing my father gave her. Soon as she opened the door, she would hear "Dumb B." It was sad. My father didn't talk to his new wife that way. He treated her with the utmost respect, the same way I treated Vicky. Ma, when you texted me that you were stopping by, that was this morning. You didn't have to stay all day and night. I'll make a deal with you. The next time you decide to stop over, you can bring Polly, I said as I kissed her on both cheeks. I was trying to soften the blow of telling her I didn't want her at my house. If she caught the meaning to my words, she didn't say anything. Instead, she raised her eyebrows in surprise. She knew I hated that bird. Bring Polly the next time? She asked quizzically. What's going on, Andrew? You hate Polly, so why would I bring him over? More importantly, why are you so happy? Did you and that Sasha character rekindle that travesty you call a relationship? She asked as she twisted her face like she smelled something foul. The scowl on her face when she called Sasha's name was deep and unattractive. It was obvious that she didn't like her. Even though Sasha and I had been sex partners in the past, she and I were never in a relationship. She was only my friend. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm just reading and forgot to uh take off. I'm sorry about that, y'all. I'm just reading along and forgot to change from the cover. All right. All right. One of the many things I hate about my mother was the fact that she was a bigot. I wouldn't necessarily call her a racist, but she believed that people of different races shouldn't commingle. Sasha was a beautiful, buxom Latino woman. Personally, I think my mother's hate for Sasha was so deep because she reminded my mother of my father's new wife. I didn't really care what her true reason was for hating Sasha. I refused to entertain her ignorance. Sasha and I did not rekindle anything. She's happily engaged. And FYI, we were never in a relationship. Sasha is my best friend, and whether you approve of our friendship or not won't change anything. We're still going to be friends, I said truthfully. Honey, well, never mind. What has you in such a good mood? My mother asked as she gave me her undivided attention. I thought you needed to go home to Polly, I smirked. I'm going as soon as you tell me what has you smiling from cheek to cheek. Let me guess, you got the promotion at work? Will you be working in the meat department? She asked excitedly. She knew I wanted that position for over a year, and every time I inquired, I was shot down. According to them, I didn't have enough experience. My question is, how could I get the experience if I was never given the chance? Mr. Timmons' entire logic was dumb, but I was in such a good mood, I didn't even care. No, I didn't get that job, but I have even better news. I said, unable to contain my joy. Vicky made me so happy I couldn't stop smiling. What is it? You always say I need a good woman in my life, and you were right. I am officially off the market, I beamed proudly. I smiled so big as I gave her the good news I was sure my wisdom teeth were showing. I was going to wait until later to tell my mother about Vicky, but since she was harassing me, there was no time like the present. You're off the market. Andrew, honey, that's great news. After the fiasco with Sasha, I didn't know what to expect. Is she a good Christian girl? Maybe now you will give me a few grandbabies. Tell me all about her. What's her name? What does she do? My mother threw so many questions at me that I didn't know where to begin. She patted the empty cushion, signaling me to take a seat next to her. Are you sure Polly will be okay with you staying out this time of night? I asked somewhat jokingly. I was in such a good mood that I doubted if anything could bring me down from the cloud I was on. Stop it, Andrew. Tell me about your friend, she begged. Her name is Victoria, but everyone calls her Vicky. She's a nurse practitioner at Randall University Hospital. A nurse practitioner in Randall? Are you serious? So she's extremely well off, my mother said, cutting me off. I smiled proudly. I couldn't see myself, but I was sure that I looked deranged, smiling with all my teeth hanging out of my mouth. I Googled the annual salary of nurse practitioners at Randall, and they made a minimum of $105,000. Vicky's salary was more than enough to support the two of us while I finished school and found a higher paying job. Honey, when can I meet her? She's obviously a brilliant young lady. I remember when your father and I first started dating, he would write me the most beautiful letters and stuff them in my mailbox. I look forward to seeing Dear Gail written in perfect cursive when I opened his letters. And he always did the most romantic things to keep our relationship exciting, my mother said dreamily as she reminisced about my father. I couldn't understand why she continued to dwell on their past. In my opinion, it was sad and pathetic. My father no longer wanted anything to do with her. The sooner she accepted that fact, the better off she would be. Seeing how she still looked at him with adoration, even though he made it clear it was over, was depressing. I was ready for her to leave. I knew my worth. I would never appear that deranged and desperate for attention. Mother, it's getting pretty late. You need to go on home and there's something I need to know, she interrupted. She interrupted because she knew I was going to tell her to leave. I wasn't in the mood to listen to her sob story or partake in her pity party. All I wanted to do was focus on the time Vicky and I spent together. I could already feel my anger rising because I already knew what she was going to ask. Ma, is Victoria black? If she is she a light skinned black or a dark skinned black? I could see her disgust rising as she spat out the last three words. She asked the question with so much anger and disdain. The fire burning with her was hotter than lava. I refused to answer her and feed into her ignorance. Instead, I got up and prepared to go to my bedroom. With any luck, she'd get the hint and leave. Andrew, don't you dare get up and walk away from me. I ask you a question. Is she black? My mom asked again, this time pushing me so hard that I stumbled. Ma, what is wrong with you? Are you crazy? I asked as I grabbed the wall to avoid falling face down on the floor. What's wrong with me? No, the question is, what's wrong with you? She screamed as she raised her hand to slap me. I caught her wrist mid swing. The days of letting my mother take her self hate out on me was over. I refused to let her hit me ever again. I was a 20-year-old man, not some little boy she could abuse at her whim. Her hatred for black women, especially those with dark skin, was just stupid, especially because my mother, though fair in complexion, is a black woman. Her air of superiority was the main reason my father treated her so badly. He said the day he met my mother, he knew she was black because of the wideness of her nose and curvature of her hips, but she refused to admit that she was black. When he met my grandmother, a dark skinned black woman, he understood why my mother hated dark skinned women so much. My mother was the product of my grandmother's raped by a white man. Both my mother and grandmother needed mental health counseling, but they refused to get it. Instead, they took their trauma out on undeserving people. I need you to leave before you say something you'll regret. Yes, Vicky is a darker shade. I can't help who I love, and I'm not going to limit myself to who I can or can't date because of your ignorance. I love Vicky, and she loves me. I refuse to let you wreck my happiness, I said as I released her wrist. So, this Vicky is a tar baby, a black. Before she could finish her degrading insult, I grabbed the 35-pound dumbbell and swung it at her head. Don't you ever call Vicky that word, I screamed as I raised the dumbbell over my head, bringing it down to my mother's face again and again and again. I was angry. I had tolerated her disrespectful mouth in the past, but I would never let her talk about the woman I loved in such a horrible manner. Vicky was 10 times the woman that my mother was, and she was jealous of that. By the time I stopped swinging, I was out of breath, and my mother's face and head had been completely obliterated. My mother's face looked like a pile of ambrosia salad. I felt no remorse. All you had to do is be happy for me, but you are so bitter that you couldn't even fake a smile. What do you feel now, Ma? Huh? You don't feel anything because you're dead. I screamed as I repeatedly kicked my mother in over her oversized gut. If she couldn't show Vicky some respect, we didn't need her in our lives. I had to smile as I looked at my mother's bludgeoned corpse. She had given me a great idea. I was going to write Vicky a letter. Texting and emailing were common and basic. I wanted to do things differently with this relationship. I wanted to be more romantic. Since I never had visitors, I was in no rush to clean my mother's dead body from my floor. No, I'd deal with my mother later. This moment was about Vicky. Walking to my bedroom, I grabbed my new pack of gel ink pens and a notepad, then sat on my bed and began to write Vicky a letter. Dear Vicky, it's about 2 a.m. and I can't sleep because you're on my mind. Ever since we met earlier today, all I've been able to think about is you. We didn't get a chance to talk that long, so I thought I should take the time to tell you more about myself. After all, men are supposed to take the first step, right? My name is Andrew Patterson. Besides being a bagger at the grocery store, I also attend Blakely Jones Community College. I only attend part-time because my work schedule is full-time. I wanted to quit my job and focus on my classes, but I've been working at the store so long that I don't want to quit until I have my degree. Classes are hard, but it's worth it because once I graduate, I'll have my associates of applied science in psychology. It doesn't sound like much, but I plan to go back to school one day for my bachelor's degree and possibly my master's. I'm an only child. I'll introduce you to my dad soon. He lives in California with his wife. My mother died during childbirth, so I never got a chance to meet her, but I'm sure she would have loved to meet you. I'm going to take a nap. I have a class at 8 a.m. I can't wait to see you again. I love you. After writing the letter, I folded it and placed it in a white envelope with Vicky's name on the front. There was no need to spend 47 cents on a stamp and wait 2 or 3 days for it to be delivered. I wanted her to see my letter as soon as she woke up in the morning. I had already searched Facebook, Instagram, and Google and gotten all of her information. Facebook gave me her name as Victoria Sherelle Tarver. Her page was private except for a few pictures. Her pinning ceremony photos from 5 years ago were public. I couldn't lie. Vicky looked beautiful in her all white knee length nurse dress, white stockings, and white skid free clogs. Her smile was so bright as she took her first group photo. In addition to the photo of her graduating class being public, was a photo of home with the caption, "Finally, a homeowner," in all caps. She didn't list the home address, but she did tag the subdivision location as Cherrywood Estates. I was so proud of Vicky for making such a huge purchase. The homes in Cherrywood were priced from $350,000 to $500,000. Looking through her Instagram, I saw that she uploaded a picture 3 months ago that said, "I can't keep calm. It's my 26th birthday." The fact that she was only 26 and was able to buy something so lavish told me that she was responsible with her money. She was going to make an amazing wife. Grabbing my keys, I prepared to drop the letter off to Vicky. "I hope you are as happy to see me as I am to see you," I said loudly as I sprayed on some Axe body spray. It was all I could afford being a college student and a grocery store bagger, but just because it was cheap didn't mean it didn't smell good. I'm sure Vicky wouldn't have an issue upgrading my cologne once I was officially moved in with her. "I'm on the way, bae." The words died on my tongue, and I retched as a scent of coagulated blood and excrement filled my nostrils as soon as I walked out of my bedroom. I looked around for the smell before I remembered that my mother's nearly decapitated corpse was still on the living room floor. It had only been a few hours since my mother went home to glory, yet she had my apartment smelling like an outhouse. I was so ready to see Vicky that I had forgotten that she was even in the house. I had never smelled a dead body before, but I knew it was impossible to smell this bad, especially since she never smelled this way when she was alive. I knew she was only giving off this odor to distract me. I had never smelled anything like this. "I see you're still playing these games to get between me and Vicky. It won't work. I love her, mother. You just have to deal with that. All you had to do was be happy for me. Now you'll never see your future grandchildren, but that's your fault," I said adamantly. "It didn't have to be like this, Ma. There is no color in love. Maybe if you realized that earlier, you'd still have a husband and a life," I said as I put my car keys and letter to Vicky on the table. She smelled awful. There was no way that I could leave her here. If I did, I'd never be able to get the dead smell out here. Since my mother was already on the carpet, I simply began rolling her up like a burrito. For years, I hated this zebra print rug. Now I had a reason to get rid of it. I was killing two birds with one stone, and it felt great. Bending down, I tried to lift my mother and screamed. She was so heavy and stiff that I nearly threw my back out. There was no way I could lift her and carry her outside. I couldn't call for help because that would get the police involved. I couldn't afford to go to jail. Vicky needed me, and I refused to leave her out in the world alone. "Think, Andrew, think," I said as I tried to come up with a solution to get my mother out of the house without raising suspicion. The sight of the Better Homes and Garden magazine gave me a quick idea. The bed on the cover of the magazine did not have a comforter on it. Running to my bedroom, I ripped the comforter off my bed and spread it over the living room floor like a tarp. Moving her was awful. The scent was becoming more and more powerful by the second. Vomit rose in my throat, but I swallowed it down forcefully. I did what I had to do, and getting sick was not an option. The last thing I needed was to clean up vomit in addition to blood, bone fragments, and brain. I had to give myself a pep talk. It had to be done, Andrew. Stop with the nauseous stuff and get her decomposing body out of this house. Each apartment has a covered garage, so no one will see you putting her overbearing self in the trunk. That was all the encouragement I needed. Taking a deep breath, I rolled my mother onto the comforter and dragged her through my laundry room to my garage. All you had to do was show Vicky some respect. Whether you approve of her or not wasn't going to change anything. I have heard you say, "Whoso findeth a wife findeth a good thing." Well, Vicky is my good thing, and I was not going to let your negative attitude run her off like you did your husband. If I had to choose between you and the woman that I love, well, you already know who I'd choose. Rest in peace, Ma, I said as I hoisted my mother into the trunk of her Buick Lucerne. After catching my breath, I took my head. I shook my head and let out an aggravated chuckle. See, this was one of the many things that I disliked about my mother. She was selfish and inconsiderate. My apartment had a one car garage, and somehow she thought it was okay to park in my garage instead of the apartment's parking lot. Yeah, she paid my rent because I couldn't afford it, and my car payment on a bagger's salary. I'm not spoiled. I was grateful that my mother was paying the rent, but it is my apartment and my car is the only car that should have been in the garage. I had asked her to stop doing this several times and she never listened. On second thought, I was glad that she hadn't listened to me, because with her parked in my rightful space, no one saw me loading her miserable remains in the trunk. After all that heavy lifting, I needed some fresh air and a cigarette. Since it was 2 a.m., I didn't think anyone would be outside, so I didn't see the need to change my blood splattered t shirt. Stepping outside, I inhaled the sweet air and exhaled the toxic energy and stuff of dealing with my mother. What are you doing up at this time of morning? I jumped and screamed when I felt a hand on my shoulder. Oh, goodness, I didn't mean to startle you. Mrs. Kramer, my nosy neighbor, said as she took a few steps away from me. She cradled her little chihuahua, Max, as if he were a newborn baby. Hey, Miss Kramer, I just had a long day. I worked from open to close today and I couldn't sleep, I lied. But I could see that she wasn't paying me any attention. Hey, is that Gail's car? I thought I saw her pulling up around 11 a.m., but I thought she left. Is she okay? Why is she still here at this time of morning? I know Polly must be worried out of his mind, Mrs. Kramer said as she walked into my garage to see if that was really my mother's car. Why didn't I close the garage? I thought to myself as panic began to consume me. Mrs. Kramer was a nosy gossiper. She never missed anything and never missed the opportunity to tell everything. The last thing I needed was for her talkative self to mention seeing my mother's car here this time of morning. She was the type to go to the police or local news station and volunteer information. I couldn't have that. Yes, ma'am, she's still here, I said with a smile. I know it's too early to have company, but do you mind if I go inside and speak with her? Gail has the recipe for the mousse chocolate cake that I want to make for the bake sale, the old bat said as she walked toward the entrance of my home. See, it was stuff like this that I hated. Who just tried to enter someone's house without receiving the okay first? It was time for her to go. Yes, I do mind if you go inside, Mrs. Kramer. It's after 2 a.m. Do you really think my mother wants to be woken from her sleep for a recipe? Would you want someone barging into your home this time of morning for something you need next week? I asked. She looked slightly embarrassed by her actions. Andrew, I'm so sorry. You're right. I don't know what I was thinking. Besides, my mother's not in the house, I admitted. Oh, I thought you said she was asleep, Mrs. Kramer said as she tried to back out of the garage. The look on her face told me that she realized she should have minded her business. Max started barking ferociously as if he knew something bad was about to happen. I chuckled because that dog had more common sense than its owner. Yes, she's sleeping for eternity in the trunk, and you're about to join her, I said as I opened the trunk and showed Mrs. Kramer what was left of my mother. Her eyes popped out of her head and she screamed loudly as I lunged toward her. She tried to run, but her 60-year-old legs couldn't keep up with my 20-year-old speed and strength. I grabbed her by her old neck and threw her against the wall. She made a loud grunting noise and fell to the floor. She looked dazed, but the sound of Max's bark seemed to clear the fog that hitting her head caused. Max, run! Run away, Max, Mrs. Kramer screamed. I wanted to laugh. Mrs. Kramer had never had any children. She opted to take care of her nieces, nephews, and her pets. She'd tell anyone that would listen that she was a proud fur mom. I remember her telling my mother that she was willing to die to make sure Max was safe and protected. It was obvious that she was a woman of her word because she near tossed Max out of the garage to make sure he didn't befall the same fate as her. They say curiosity killed the cat. Guess what? I asked Mrs. Kramer as I approached her with the box cutter that I kept in my pocket from work. Tag, you're it. I laughed as I pushed the blade up and swiftly ran it across the loose skin of Mrs. Kramer's older neck. Loud gurgle sounds rattled out of her mouth as she gripped the neck with both hands. Blood gushed from between her fingers and dripped over the wedding ring that her deceased husband placed on her finger 40 years ago. There was so much blood that it looked black. The smell was nauseating, but seeing the lime dripping over her hands was somehow intoxicating. I smiled when I saw the light finally dim in Mrs. Kramer's cataract covered eyes. All your nosy self had to do was mind your business. I couldn't risk you talking to the police. That would keep me and Vicky apart, and I can't have that. I said as I picked Mrs. Kramer up and threw her in the trunk. Hopefully, this was the last distraction I'd be experiencing. Well, this has been our selection for today, which is open genre. And so this particular selection covers a few things. So it's a little bit of thriller, it's a little bit of mystery, it's a little bit of romance, delusional as it may be, a bit of a humor. So it's kind of a melting pot of a lot of things. And so we hope that you've enjoyed our selection for today, which is Dear Vicky by Octavia Grant. And we will continue to bring you more selections, particularly for the days that we have not finished, that we didn't release and do and release, I should say. And we will get those out to you and bring those to you as promised. Well, my name is LD Robinson, and we want to remind you of what we do here at Tig Brad, and that is, yeah, things are really, really slow. So I do apologize. And we read aloud. And we want to invite you to read aloud with us. Um, Reading is so important. I cannot stress just how important reading is. You go places in your imagination, you go places. And the fun thing about it is that sometimes when you go places that you read about, you actually see that they're there. And so that's what we want to encourage as you are reading. If you decide to read aloud, tag us at the International Great Black Read Aloud Day or hashtag TigBrat. And make sure you do those things on the screen. We want to remind you that these are the days that we have been reading. There are several days that we need to go back and do, and we will do those and bring you those days here shortly. And we are excited. So we hope you have enjoyed your read. And again, tonight, I apologize about the sluggishness of our feet tonight. We'll correct that. So it is a good night and or a great day wherever you are in the world. And remember that this is the International Great Black Read Aloud Day 2024 edition, where we are giving voice to words written by Black people all around the world. Be sure to check out our website for our covers so that there you're able to see where our authors originate and just see selections of things that you may want to read. Have a good night. We'll see you maybe tomorrow. Bye bye.